Loss comes in many forms, and usually in unexpected ways. It can be devastating, leaving you facing an uphill struggle to go on with life without someone you thought would always be there. But life does go on, and even in the deepest despair, we can find hope. Welcome to Grief Relief with your hosts, Drs. Gloria and Heidi Horsley, brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation, helping people find hope after loss. And now here's Dr. Gloria and Dr. Heidi.
Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Welcome to the Grief Relief Show. And Heidi is my daughter. And Heidi, I'm happy to have you my co-host today.
Hi, Mom. How are you? We have really great guests tonight. And we are going to talk about spirituality and how to find hope after loss through spirituality. And we've got really great, energetic guests who are so positive, and I'm really happy about this. We are going to have first Sherry Cassedy. And Sherry has graduated from Stanford University and Georgetown Law School. She also has a master's degree from Sofia University in Transpersonal Psychology.
And in spiritual guidance also, Heidi, which I think is really going to be important today.
Absolutely. Sherry has been a lawyer for 29 years and does mediation. And she practices something near and dear to your heart, as you know, because she does yoga.
That's great, because I think yoga is really important.
Absolutely. We've done some shows on the benefits of yoga after loss, and it is so important because it does shift your energy. The other thing about Sherry is she lost her son, Timothy Sullivan, 4 years ago in 2010 in a skateboarding accident.
Tragic.
So yeah, and so we'll hear a little bit about that and how she ended up finding hope after that happened. Our second guest is Faith Freed. She has a master's degree in counseling psychology, again from Sofia University, and she is the author of a great book, and it's called Is, Your Authentic Spirituality Unleashed. And Faith inspires individuals all over the world to live lives of celebration. And as you know, Mom, we're going to show a clip, and you'll see how positive she is and how much fun she is.
Right, and one of the exciting things we're going to have at the end of the show is a meditation by Faith that you'll be able to learn to do yourself and do daily. So I think that's a great thing. Well, Sherry, welcome to our show today. It's great to have you on.
Thank you.
Hi, Sherry.
First of all, let me say I'm so sorry about your son, Timothy. I know it is a tough road and been 4 years. Was that a crisis of faith for you? Because I know you were already into the spiritual realm and thinking about things like that. How did you deal with that?
Well, the crisis of faith for me actually came much earlier. I lost my nephew in 1988 at age 11 to cancer. And so he was sick for about a year and a half, and during that time we were praying, and I felt that our prayers would be answered. And when the prayers weren't answered, that was really a crisis for me.
And he's such a handsome little guy.
Yeah, he was really an angel. And so it just kind of shook my understanding that a child could die so young. And as I looked at that, I understood more about my beliefs, and that I somehow had this expectation that we all had our X number of years to which we were entitled. And so it just reshaped my thinking. And then we also lost our nephew, another nephew, my sister-in-law's son in '99 to suicide at age 15.
So 10 years later, you lost another nephew.
Yeah, and suicide was another really, terrible loss. There was a lot more shame and sense of failure.
And how did he kill himself?
He hung himself at the family home.
Oh, my goodness.
It was very traumatic.
Yeah.
And he had been hospitalized. We knew that he was struggling, but again, it felt like love should be able to cure him. And finally I realized love wasn't going to cure mental illness any more than it was going to cure cancer.
Right.
So I had come to terms with some of those issues and with the loss of a child and the reality that children die. Of course, when it was my own son, it was a completely different experience.
Was that a surprise for you, really, what it's like to have that?
Of course.
Because, I worked in the hospital with many people who had died. I worked on an intensive care unit, and I thought I knew something about it. Whoa, was I ever surprised.
Yeah. And being very close to both my sister and sister-in-law and seeing them through another good friend who had lost her son. So I felt like I was close, but then it was really a completely different experience in the sense, for me, it just sort of blew my mind, literally. And everything that I thought I knew, I had to revisit and reorganize my thinking. And so for me, it was also a really critical shift in my spiritual journey. Because I do believe, and I had at that time a strong belief in afterlife. So I had a strong sense that Timothy was continuing on in some other realm, in some other way. And I really needed to know what that was. So it started a deeper exploration for me. But the word crisis is also really interesting, as I'm sure you know, that it means both challenge and opportunity. So we have sort of the two sides of that. And I was really intrigued that Henry Nouwen, who's a Catholic author, said there are two responses to loss. I thought, really? Only two? But resentment and gratitude. And it was kind of that same sense of there is an opportunity, you know, there is the possibility of light even in the midst of darkness.
Well, and often at the very beginning, it's hard to see your way out of resentment. You kind of have to live it and kind of and just mourn it, and then slowly get to a place of gratitude. And I think part of the way that we do that, at least part of the way that I did it, is to look at people like you, where you are now, where I am, where my mom is, people that were a little further down the road that I could kind of latch onto.
Right, it creates a possibility that maybe there is a way out. And for me, that even in darkness, or with my husband and I traveling in Ireland last year, we had, you know, these dark gray skies all the time as we were walking. But occasionally the clouds would break a little and you would just have a glimmer of light. So it's not like the sun is coming out shining, but there's just that glimmer, and being able to recognize that and move toward that and just see that there is some distinction in even the darkness to shades of gray clouds. And
yeah, you're making a really good point, and it's so wonderful when we do start to see even a tiny glimmer. Yeah, and I'm always encouraging people that are really entrenched in their grief to try to find just little moments of their day where they might see that.
I think we were talking about those, that some people can accept those little gifts that happen and those little strange things that come, and some people it's a little harder for. Did you have some things that came for you that spiritually reminded you of Timothy?
well, when things came, I really embraced them. So Timothy had a totem that we found out later of a butterfly. So anytime I would see a butterfly, I would sort of, you know, it's silly. There's butterflies everywhere, but suddenly I was paying more attention to them, and I found that to be something that did just uplift me in the moment. It just, you know, I could smile, I could just take that in, and I understood it as a connection to him, but even just as a butterfly, as the miracle of nature. It was something that...
I love butterflies, which is why I have this tattoo of a butterfly.
Well, there you go.
So I know there's some points that you wanted to make for people and to help people, and I wondered if you could kind of go over those for us. I know that you were talking about how gratitude, every grief is unique. Can you talk about that, grief being unique?
That was something that I read in a book by C.S. Lewis shortly after Timmy died, and I was reading everything I could get my hands on. And he said, you know, every grief is unique, just like every love is unique. And that really helped me to feel free to kind of claim my own experience and not feel like I had to follow some pattern of what grief was going to look like. And even realizing that every love is unique, every relationship is unique, and even different points in the relationship. So I had a good friend in yoga who lost her son at 5 months old after, you know, trying to become pregnant for a long time. And we talked, and I really wanted to console her losing her son at such a tender time, such a young, I mean, she never had a chance to know him. And she was consoling me because, you know, we had 20 years with Timmy, and we both were grieving for the other's loss as being the greater loss. So it's unique if you lose someone at a certain point in time, it can be very different than at a later point in time.
And then you talk about take comfort. Talk about that.
Yeah, that's just really, I would encourage people to do what soothes you. For me, music was very healing, water, rest. So whatever nurtures you, breathing, to do what
the simple things,
what is
right?
soothing. And my darkest day, where I literally could not get out of bed, I couldn't see the light, I just couldn't move. Finally, at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I had this moment where I thought, yeah, I could probably get up.
Yeah.
And I decided to get up and take a shower. And when I got up, the first thing was I kind of looked at my raggedy, old, oversized T-shirt, and I thought, you know, if I'm going to have days like this, I need a better nightie.
I love that.
So I called my sister and asked her to get me a nice, cozy, comfy nightie, just something to nurture me in those times.
And then you say, allow your grief to unfold.
And I think that goes back also to everyone's path is going to be different, and to just allow it to happen and to stay alert. You know, it's a difficult road, but there will be little breadcrumbs along the way, and to follow those and to look for the miracles.
Great. I love that. Look for miracles.
I do too.
Well,
This
we're
is
going to be seeing a roll-in of Sherry and Faith. We're going to have you, of Faith. And Sherry, we're going to have you still here. And we're going to talk to you both and take part in a meditation. So we're excited about that. So we can go to the roll-in now.
Great.
Hi, I'm Faith Freed. I'd like to introduce you to my new book called Is, Your Authentic Spirituality Unleashed. What's it all about? Connection with your source and recognition of your true self. Is short for infinite source. It also points to being and all it is. I was called to write this book for fiercely independent people who make their own meaning of life according to what rings true. Many of us take what feels right from various traditions, add in our own wisdom, and do what works. But where do we free-thinking spiritual seekers turn for some structure? When I looked for a home base for my personal beliefs and practices, I found none. Even with my background in counseling, psychology, and spiritual guidance, I felt at a loss when it came to anchoring my authentic spirituality. That's why I created a philosophy based on my own experience. I share it in the book to inspire you to embrace your own brand of faith and to help you feel at home in your self-created spiritual space, whatever that is. In the book, I illustrate my do-it-yourself system with a 4-color disco ball. It's an ironic symbol, being both irreverent and reverent, sacred and silly. It sums up my spin on existence as I understand it. Then we take a fresh look at ancient wisdom, revisiting basics like gratitude, presence, and paradox. And as we do so, you're invited to play with these ideas and consider how they might help you to create a rich and rewarding spiritual life of your own design. Is will give you the opportunity to explore, cultivate, and fully claim your personal faith. Please join me as we celebrate your authentic spirituality. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about Is. I'll see you in the book. And please come prepared to party, people.
Well, Faith Freed, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Hi, Faith.
Hi.
That was great.
Yeah.
That's a really
I
great
love that
video.
disco ball.
I do too, and I like the idea of celebrating your life, because I feel like when we celebrate our lives, we celebrate the lives of those that have died.
Absolutely.
And my brother was life. He was energy. And I want to remember the way that he lived, not the way that he died.
Oh, well said. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So, and I love the celebration I did, because when I do workshops for the Compassionate Friends for people who've lost kids, I do one called Down the Road a Ways. And really, I'm, talking to people who are out of the, first, second, third, fourth year of grief, and they're ready to move on. And as Heidi said, to get into more celebration of the life. And You know, grief isn't something that you do 24/7. You really do have to go in and out of it and celebrate and laugh
and give
all those
yourself a
kinds of
break.
things. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right,
You need
right.
a break. So I love what you're doing, and I want to talk to you a little bit, a little few tips about celebrating life, like surrender and lighten up. Can you talk about that?
Well, sure. I think the first thing is the idea of giving your burden to God or to your higher power. This idea that you're not in it alone and that you don't have to shoulder this whole burden, which can be overwhelming, and to be okay with asking for that help and for that healing of that spiritual nature. And it doesn't have to be God, you know, some kind of religious definition. It can be your source, it can be the force, the energy, the universe, however you conceive of that. But just if there's any knowing that there is something beyond the physical realm, then to tap into that for some help and lean on it. And I think oftentimes in psychology, you know, at least, you know, from our sort of milieu, we see people who get really attached to their loved ones through the grief.
Yeah.
And the grief experience almost becomes a bond with the deceased. And so it's nice to be able to turn the page and realize that you actually can have a bond of joy, like you said. You remember the wonderful times and you remember the life in that person, and you start to cultivate a more present relationship with that experience of that individual, to keep it alive, that's based on joy and love instead of grief.
Right.
I think that is so important.
And another thing you've got is love yourself first. I really think that's so important.
Oh, well, you know, we all want to hear "I love you," and you know, hearing "I love you" is always great. Never gets old. But if you can say "I love me," we're in a whole different league. You know, "I love you" is healing. "I love me" is survival. So we can always rely upon that if we are in the habit of sort of, you know, like Sherry said, self-soothing and loving ourselves and keeping our self-talk positive.
I love the "I love me" because I never say it.
Say it now.
It sounds really strange to me, you know what I mean? Because we're not used to loving on ourselves like that.
Yeah,
And
but really try it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's important, like you said, it'll shift our energy in the way that we feel.
right, right.
I was just thinking the only time I guess you'd want to say I love you is when you're looking in the mirror.
Well, yes, but you can say it now.
Right.
You know, sometimes we need it when we've been pulled over and we're about to get a speeding ticket and the cops are back there. It's, "I love me, I'm okay, I'm okay." But any time is a good time. And I like to just live in the experience of love and lead with love, live in love, and leave a trail of love.
I like that.
And it's another sort of way to take care of yourself so that you can set the intention before you go into a room. I'm going to enter in the vibration of love. I'm going to give that from myself.
Well, and if you put that out there and enter with that, it comes back to you times 10.
Sure does. Sure
You know,
does.
it'll just, people can feel that and they'll give it back to you.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. And like Sherry said about following the light, this is about living in love. So it's, you know, gosh, in a time of devastation, when you're when you have had a very serious loss, it's sometimes really hard to grasp onto hope.
Yep.
And so we have to just keep it really simple and be grateful for every little tiny thing. I mean, love the view, love your tattoo, love me, love you.
Yeah.
But to really, to just keep, you know, going back to that default mode of love now in the moment, and then, you know, leaving a trail of love is just ending things well. You know, saying thank you and giving a hug or a handshake and maybe even forgiving somebody who said something really stupid and that wasn't very compassionate, and in time of grief or loss, I mean, no one ever knows what to say.
Right.
So they're going to mess it up a lot of the time. You know, just knowing that they're doing their best. Namaste.
You know, our friend Darcy Sims used to say, people would come to her and say, "I didn't get to say goodbye to my child," and all that, and she would say to them, "What would you have said had you been able to say goodbye to your child?" And they said, "I would have said I love you," and she would say to them, "Do you think your child knew that you loved them?" And they said yes, and she said, "Well, it's been said."
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And you can say it now.
Yeah.
I mean, that I think is too, also what's lovely about spirituality in these times is that the idea that this relationship, it's different. It's not on a physical plane anymore, but it can continue. And so you can send that love out anytime. And just like you said about doing that in a room full of people, I think it comes right back to you from that spiritual realm as well. You feel that from your loved one.
So another thing that you were talking about is expressing gratitude. Can you talk about that? Heidi and I are very big on that, aren't we?
Yes, because you know the research has shown that that's the #1 way just quickly change your energy is to have gratitude.
Yes, absolutely.
And these are brain chemistry changes, which is pretty amazing to think about that, expressing gratitude. I know it's hard for people to express gratitude when you've had a tremendous loss, but sometimes you can just be grateful that you can open your eyes in the morning. It can be simple, that you can step out of the bed, that you can match your socks.
And grateful that I had Scott in my life for 17.5 years.
Right.
Yes. So all sorts of things to be grateful. Well, let me talk to you two together for a minute about your take on things. And I know you two have known each other. And what about spirituality and gratitude and connection?
Well, one of the things that occurs to me as I listen to you talk is, I don't know if this was your experience, but in this kind of deep loss, your heart kind of gets blown open, right? And you understand the concept of a broken heart, but that creates this incredible opening to move with love. When you move into a room, there's this love energy that does move between people who are sharing that kind of deep loss, because it just takes you into that deep experience that can really connect people.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I could just feel that. And, you know, I like to make it a daily practice. So one of the things I talk about in the book is just find a reminder or a cue, a time of day when you're going to say your gratitude prayers. I call them my shout outs, because I don't like the word prayer. It just sounds kind of churchy. But the idea of just a high five to the universe, like thank you for everything that's going well. And I do my gratitude prayers at 11:11 every AM and PM. I'm usually outdoors saying thank you to everything that is going well.
I like that.
Well, let's talk about this gratitude meditation we're going to do right now for a minute. When do you do it, and that kind of thing?
Well, I know you all love yoga. I love yoga too. Anytime, maybe after a yoga practice, or it could be just a meditation that you do. The thing is, it takes like, what, 30 seconds? I mean, really, we can run through it very quickly. And I just touch on the spiritual bases that I talk about in the book with the 4-color disco ball, and those being infinite source, which is a higher power, inspired self, the higher self, incarnate self, which is the body mind, and incarnate source, which is nature. And I simply run through those 4 things. And so, you know, I love to do that together.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So if you just take one of your hands, and we begin with infinite source. Thank you for manifesting all the miracles in my favor.
So that's the thumb with
your forefinger.
And then what is it again? Infinite.
And I said it wrong. Let me say it again. I'll try to do it right. Infinite source. Thank you for all the miracles manifesting in my favor.
Ah, nice.
Okay.
Then, thank you for my inspired self. Help me to listen, feel, and follow.
And that's what finger?
I guess that's your middle finger.
So listen, feel, and follow.
Yeah. So do you understand what that means? You know, getting a hit from your essence or your core, or your higher self. It's often we get those divine downloads coming through us. And so it's pay attention to those internal messages and follow them. And then we have,
finger.
Thank you, infinite source, for my healthy, vibrant body and my bright, clear mind. I think that's self-evident.
I like that.
And thank you for the dazzling beauty of nature, evidence of you.
Wonderful.
So that's it. But of
And
course
just
you
go
could,
through those.
of course, and you could develop your own. Could be 4 things that you just want to touch on. But just the idea of having a practice of some sort to ground your gratitude and to ground your spiritual practice is I think, super helpful, especially for those of us who aren't signing up for organized religion.
And I like how you said a time, you have a time, 11:11, every day where you do it.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I do it without fail pretty much. And if it's 11:12 because I was doing something, I do it anyway.
And so if you're having a really bad day, do you still do it?
Oh yes, all the more so.
Okay, that's
I'm
good.
out there for longer. Because, you know, you can have a longer conversation, right? I mean, if you were sort of collaborating with your creator on what it is that you want to create together. Yeah.
You know, I think one of the things that people have when they've recently had a loss is the monkey mind. They talk about it. I mean, early on, it is so hard. Your mind is just going in all directions. And I think just the physical thing of being able to do that can you could probably even do it without even saying anything to slow things down for you until you can kind of get it together, because it is difficult. And I think that's where walking and walking meditations, moving, doing something for people who can't possibly sit still. I remember times when I could not possibly even begin to sit still.
And it reminds me of, I like to say, attend the temple and tame the mind. So tend to the temple being, this is your shrine to the divine. So doing more with the body and doing less with the brain. That, I think, is a good piece of self-care.
Well, I want to thank you, too, for being on the show today. You're amazing women, and it's great that you'd be on and help people, and I know that you help a lot of people in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This is a great show.
And thanks a lot for talking about spirituality, because I think it's important for people to realize that they can have spirituality. They don't have to go to an organized religion setting in order to feel that spirit. They can find it in nature. They can find it in all sorts of places.
And they don't have to carry, as you said, this burden of grief alone.
Right.
They can give it up to the universe or their higher power or wherever they want to give it.
Right.
And thank you all for watching our show today, and God bless you in whatever you're doing in your life, and hope that you will take some things from this that will help you.
Thank you.
This has been the Grief Relief Show, hosted by mother-daughter team Doctors Gloria and Heidi Horsley. This show has been brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation, helping people find hope after loss. Be sure to visit opentohope.com, where you can listen to radio programs, watch Open to Hope TV, read articles, and view books. You can also join Dr. Gloria and Dr. Heidi on Twitter and Facebook, and put your events on their international calendar. Thanks for watching, and remember, others have been there and made it, and you can too.